Thank you. Good evening, members, officers, visitors and members of the public. I'm Councillor Mike Baldock and I'll be chairing this evening's meeting. The meeting will be recorded and proceedings will be conducted in accordance with the Council's constitution, including procedural rules which are available on the Council's website. Item 1, emergency evacuation procedure. There's no planned evacuation drill this evening, and accordingly, if the alarm sounds, it is to be treated as a genuine need to evacuate. There are emergency exits over there and by the lifts, opposite the lifts where you came in. Please do not use the lifts. On exiting, you will be directed to the assembly point, and it is important that you remain there and do not return to the building until I have announced that it is safe to do so. If anyone present will need assistance in evacuating, could you please inform me now so that we can make the necessary arrangements to assist you? No one's showing, are they? Okay. Members must consider each application and everything that is said in the meeting concerning the application and make their decision based solely on the planning judgment of the information available to them. Following a decision by members, delegated authority is given to the planning officer to issue the decision notice. Planning permission is not granted or refused until the issue of that decision notice. Any member of the council who is not a member of the planning committee may attend as a visiting member and may speak, having given prior notification. Such visiting members may of course include ward members, and whilst visiting members can speak on an application, they are not permitted to vote. Any member acting as a substitute on the planning committee must have undertaken appropriate training before doing so. Members must remain in the meeting for the whole time that each item is being debated and should not vote on that item unless they have done so. Bearing this in mind, I will be taking a 5-minute break every half an hour for health reasons, as requested on this occasion. I would now like to welcome our public speakers and remind you that you have 3 minutes to speak, and an audible warning of time will be given when there are 30 seconds remaining. If a meeting is deferred to conduct a site meeting, you may speak both at this meeting and at the site meeting. The meeting will follow the order. No, it won't. In particular, I will take any items that are in the public to speak. Right. Items 2. Apologies for abstitute and substitutes.
Thank you, Chair. I have apologies of substitutes from Councillor Elliot Jays, who's substituted by Councillor Derek Carnell, Councillor Kieran Golding, who's substituted by Councillor Anne Kavanagh, Councillor Claire Martin, Councillor Mike Henderson, and Councillor Julian Speed and Councillor James Hall.
Bit of a depleted committee tonight. Okay, item 3, minutes. To approve the minutes of the meetings held on the 7th of March as a correct record. Can I have a proposer? Thank you. Item 4, to invite members' declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests under the Localism Act. And since you always jump in anyway, I'll take disclosable non-pecuniary interests under the Code of Conduct adopted by the Council. I'd like to remind the meeting that where it is possible that a fair-minded and informed observer, having considered the facts, would conclude that there's a real possibility that a member might be predetermined or biased on any agenda item, that member should declare this possibility and then leave the room while the item is considered. Councillor Booth.
Thank you, Chairman. In a past life, I made representation on item 12, that's 3.1. Wearing a different hat as a parish councillor. I've come to this meeting with a clear and open mind, and I will intend to listen to the debate and then make my judgment after that. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'll just declare that under item 11, 2.5, the land at Wises Lane, I have previously made clear my position on this application and called it in. And I will be vacating the chair at that point, and Councillor Carnell will take over that single item. I will be taking that one last, so there's minimal disruption. Right, Part B, reports for the head of planning. Right, I'm going to take item 3.1 first, which is Beverley Camp, Warden Road, Eastchurch. Can I ask the officer if there are a summary and update, please?
Thank you, Chair. I can confirm that there are no updates, and I'll just take you through the presentation. Yep. Okay. Retrospective planning permission is sought for the change of use from a holiday park for 10 months occupancy for the siting of 21 residential park homes for use all year round. As this is a retrospective change of use application, there are no As this is a retrospective change of use application, there are no plans or visual material in support of the application. So we'll show you the site layout and some photographs. So this is the site layout. There's an aerial view of the site on Warden Road, East Church. And here are a series of photographs of the site. This is from the entrance. This is from the east of the site with the homes in the background. These are another photograph of the park homes, and here's another view of the site. So I'll refer you to the officer's report and the recommendations therein. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask Mr. James Bancroft, the applicant, to speak? If you'd like to come down and address from the centre. You get 3 minutes, and no, just there. This one, yes, in the centre. You'll get a 30-second warning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Recommendation is to authorise enforcement action in relation to the breach of condition, despite the fact it accepts that a refusal of planning permission could have significant adverse personal and financial implications for the occupants of the homes on the site. This is a site that works. It's a lovely little community of retirement homes at the end of a residential street. I would be happy if my mum was living in one. If it walks like a duck, and it quacks like a duck, and it looks like a duck, it's probably a duck. If it looks like a caravan and moves like a caravan, it's probably a caravan. Now, that's me paraphrasing the rather out-of-date 1960 Act, but that's what you're being invited to look at today. Is this a caravan park, and are we therefore setting a terrible precedent by allowing all caravan and holiday parks to suddenly convert to 12 months occupancy? Well, no, you don't, because it's been working unknowns, unpunished for about 5 years now. They've all been living there. Most of them paid about £200,000 for these beautiful residences. They don't move. They can't be mobile, which, by the way, is the definition. They're settled. They're not imposing. You don't need a 2-month break from them because they're all elderly and quiet. There's also a nice green field in front of them, so you don't have to worry about the 106. I don't really see why there's so much emphasis placed on those. The reality is this is a system that's working, and all the applicant is asking for you to do is legitimise a situation that has already developed through no fault of their own. You would be asking, the recommendation is for you to seek enforcement and therefore punishment against people who may well have been the victims of some serious mis-selling in the first place. If you chuck them out for 2 months, then some of them are in their 90s, some of them are incredibly infirm, they've got nowhere else to go, it's just going to place more emphasis and more hardship on other council issues. If you have any doubt as to how these chalets look, how these park homes look, beautifully insulated, then defer for a site visit and go and see it for yourself. If you believe this is not a sustainable development, a sustainable establishment community, then defer and have a site visit and see for it yourself.
Thank you. Okay, I'll move the officer's recommendation. Seconded, Councillor Booth. Any speakers? Councillor Winklis.
Thank you, Chair.
Oh, sorry, hang on, I might have done something wrong.
The ward member, Tara No, is online.
Apologies, the ward member is online, so I'll take them first. Councillor No, are you with us? Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Beverly Park is not a drawing on a piece of paper. It's that developers hope to make real. It already exists. These are not prospective residents, they are actual residents. They've been there for nearly 7 years. This isn't their second home, it's their only home. They pay 12 months council tax. They are registered to vote. They receive posts in the letterboxes of their numbered houses. These are not the qualities of a holiday park. These are not caravans. They are residential park homes built to BS 3632 standard. They are insulated and intended for year-round use. I've spoken to a stately Albion representative who made it clear that they cannot be split apart. They must be transported whole. Most of these homes are 20 feet wide. The gate is 17. While mobile in theory, they cannot actually be removed. 6.10 and other sections state that occupation of Beverly Park throughout the year would bring about activity, noise, and traffic in the winter months that would be harmful to the rural character. The average age of these residents is 75. Iris is 97. There are no noise issues here, no impactful traffic. They maintain immaculate properties with gardens. They feed local wildlife. They live a peaceful, quiet life. If their presence was going to change the character of the area, it would have already done so. 16.17 says it's important to note that the residential accommodation would be poorly located and divorced from services and facilities. The needs of these residents are currently well met and have been for some time. They are registered with the GP. They have transport. When one resident is unable to leave home, the community steps in. East Church is less than 5 minutes away. There's always someone happy to pick up whatever their neighbor needs. There is great concern that by granting this group residential status, others are going to seek to do the same. But this park isn't like the others on the island. It is the only one that was built to be residential from the start. The homes meet the residential standard. The site itself doesn't have the features holiday parks do. There's no security lighting, no shops. These residents have created a peaceful retirement community. They look out for each other. They enjoy independent living in homes that are the perfect size and layout for their needs. They revel in the peace and quiet as much as the surrounding residents do. I urge you to consider their unique qualities and grant the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor No. Right, Councillor Winklis.
Thank you, Chair. This is a very difficult one for me. Basically, our policy states that the holiday home should only be there for 10 months of the year. But in saying that, this is very difficult for me. If these people, if we go to the officer's recommendations, and these people are basically going to be have to vacate for 2 months of the year, does this basically means that they could be homeless? And I personally will have great difficulty thinking that these people will be made homeless. Though saying that, I do understand the policy does state 10 months for holiday homes, so it's a difficult one for me, but I'll listen to the rest of the debate before I make my mind up. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Booth.
Thank you, Chairman. I refer to page 184, item 16101. The development is contrary to local plan policy DM5 and is therefore unacceptable in principle, and significant weight, members, significant weight is placed on this disbenefit arising from conflict with the local plan policy. There are 13 policies contravened with this application.
Can I ask for a little bit of decorum in the public gallery? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. There is a significant history with regards to holiday sites and permanent sites and whatever terminology you want to use on the Isle of Sheppey. Few people know that the largest concentration of holiday sites, holiday homes, mobile homes, chalets, whatever you want to term, in Kent is on the Isle of Sheppey. So we're talking a considerable number. A considerable number that do abide by the rules and that do operate in a professional manner. Page 185 names those policies, Mr. Chairman. ST1, ST3, CP1, CP2, CP3, CP5, CP6, CP7, ST6, DM3, DM5, DM14 and DM28. I seconded recommendation to go with officers. I stand with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hunt.
Thank you. Obviously, it's a difficult decision that we've got to make. They're all difficult. That's why we're here. We have to make the difficult decisions, and it's right that it does come before members to be decided. The problem is, on a personal level, we'd love to be able to say, yeah, no problem, stay there, because we know that the implications that this is going to have on residents there. But in planning terms and the policies, it's the officers got the right recommendation that coming forward, unfortunately. The problem is, if we've been told that the caravans, they should be caravans, but they're not caravans because they can't be moved. If these were houses that have been built in this area, would we still be saying the same, well, actually, if you don't want to be moving the residents out there because they shouldn't be there, we'd be saying you shouldn't be building houses in this area. And this is the same thing as that's being told, that they don't move. So in theory, they're houses, they're residential properties that shouldn't be there because it's a 10-month occupancy. So all the policy side of things, it's completely, and there is appeals in the past. We've gone through so many different applications and refusals and appeals. It's clear what needs to be done, and it's just a shame that it's come to this. And as the speaker said, they've been missold this. It shouldn't have been allowed in the first place. Whoever had that site at the time, selling it to residents and selling a dream, basically. It states in there, one of the conditions says that it has to all be signed, that it is another property, and I know sites where that's happened. And they do need, obviously, someone at some point has broken the rules. It's not the residents' fault. But we are where we are with it, and officers have got it right, unfortunately.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Before I take the next speaker, Councillor Hunt raises a good point. This is a difficult issue. There are policies, and that's why it is before the committee tonight. It is, officers have to follow policy. The committee can take a different view. But I would say, if you're thinking of taking a different view tonight, we will need a reason as to why we are not following the policy. In the past, we have had situations where a refusal, a recommendation for refusal has been overturned, and then there hasn't really been a good reason as to why we've overturned that policy, or that recommendation. So if we do end up in a position where there is a refusal of the recommendation, we do need a reason to go forward. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Chair. If it is the case buyers were missold the impression the site was an all-year occupancy, I feel nothing but complete sympathy for those affected. But for me, it could open the floodgates. It might be an individual's opinion that this site is unique, but other parks could disagree. And if one has been approved, how could we reject the others?
I think Councillor No addressed that in the way that this is a different sort of site to the majority on the island, where there tend to be caravans. One question I would like to have clarified. We're currently, they are paying 12-month council tax. How would we justify kicking them out for 2 months if they're paying council tax? Simon?
Council tax is separate from planning, and so the payment of council tax by the residents isn't a material planning consideration. I mean, we've got our planning lawyer available, who can advise further on this point from a legal point of view. Is Matthew available? Matthew, are you able to advise on this point?
Could we have that legal commentary now, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think essentially what's being suggested here by the applicant is that they should be entitled to planning permission because they have informed the council tax department that they are permanent residents of the site. And while a council is obliged to calculate council tax in accordance with the relevant legislation and based on things like permanence, it doesn't necessarily follow that the council has an obligation to give them planning permission on that basis. Simon's correct, they are separate issues. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, recognising that they are separate issues, it would still put the council in a position of throwing people out of their houses where they've paid council tax, which is something we have to bear in mind. Councillor Kavanagh.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to repeat part of what you've said, Mike. We, the council, have accepted them as permanent residents and therefore we've been taking council tax. That's one department. And then planning is, how can we on one hand say you are a permanent resident and on the other hand are not? It's a mess. I acknowledge that, a complete mess. You should never have been sold these properties with false hope. But the whole site is surrounded by other caravans. It could open the floodgates. Other sites could decide to get rid of the caravans and build similar homes. I'm like Councillor Winkless. It's a difficult one. I don't know where I'm going to go.
Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify some things. So, are these leased sites or are they freehold, and who's being enforced on? That's the bit I've missed.
Simon?
My understanding is that the freehold of the site is owned by the site owner and the plots are leased for ground rent to the occupants. And so an enforcement notice would, in the first instance, I would have thought be served on the site owner, on the site as a whole.
Come back.
Thanks. Yep.
Councillor Marchington.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. We've been down this road before, 2nd Avenue, East Church, and I'm going back best part of 30 years. They were brick built, red brick, proper built houses, nice little 2-bedroom places. They were 10-month occupancy. They tried to get 12-month and failed. My daughter was one of them, that's how I remember the issue. And to this date, they're brick built, and for the last 30 years, they've been 10 months occupancy, and I do know that. Thank you.
Okay, one of the complaints that I often hear is that these are dwellings that aren't contributing to the health service, they're not contributing to social amenities. And this application would get a considerable amount of money, but would in 106, which is missing at the moment, but which would actually go towards providing healthcare and, I believe, libraries, which at the moment we don't get. I wonder, because they pay 12-month council tax, they may already be registered with local doctors. And so, but there's that money isn't going towards those doctors because there is no 106 money. This proposal would give about, I think it's about 11,000 in 106 money, which isn't there at the moment. And it would go some way to it. Anybody else? Councillor Stephen.
One of them. Thank you, Chair. I find it difficult to comprehend that these residents, these people, were told it was 12 months when it was only 10 months. Now, that's not their fault. They signed a contract, obviously believing that they were getting 12 months, whereas the landowner had obviously not applied for 12 months and just carried on with a 10-month occupancy system. But that's not their fault, is it? I mean, we shouldn't be penalising those people that were told that they were getting 12-month occupancy. I think the landowner should be penalised, and yes, the 106 agreement should be enforced. And morally, I think we would be suicidal for this council to say no. You know, because we're to blame in part for letting it happen in the first place. Unfortunately, we can't monitor it. We can't get people down there to check it out on a regular basis. But that's not their problem, that's ours. So I think we should honour this 12-month occupancy.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a great deal of sympathy with the residents, many of them, as I see in the public gallery there, for the situation they find themselves in. I am very much torn on this application. I know how nice these park homes can be. My niece lives in another park home development, not in this borough, I would add. And they are very, very nice, and they do cost quite a bit of money, as the speaker said. Having said that, the fact that they, as the speaker alluded to, they were missold, these properties in the first place, is not really a planning consideration for us. That is a civil matter for the residents of those park homes. I really don't know where to go with this. I have every sympathy with them, but then again, I've got to look at policy. So I don't know where to go, honestly, Mr. Chairman.
That's what. Oh dear, sorry. That's why it's before us. Policy is clear, but the committee has the power to make a different decision. An officer could just follow policy, but it was brought to this committee because it was felt to warrant that wider consideration. Okay, I see no other speakers. So those in favour of the officer recommendation, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And abstentions? 1. So that recommendation 1 has been to refuse the application. Does anybody want to move the proposal to take enforcement action? Okay, that fails because nobody's proposed it. We'll go on to deferred item 2. Deferred item 1. Councillor Stephen, are you okay for another 15 minutes? Okay. Oh, would the gallery like to clear? Just in case there's any confusion, the Planning Committee have refused your application but did not take a vote on enforcement action. Okay then. I think we're taking deferred item 2, the Nichols Transport Yard, number 501573. Can I have a officer update, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. No update to the reports in front of members. This application is being presented back to the Planning Committee following deferral at the December Planning Committee for a member site visit which took place on the 20th of December. The application is for a minor material amendment to a previously approved scheme for a residential development of 49 dwellings on the site. This is the site here, Lidbrook Close. As members can see, it's surrounded on almost all sides by other residential developments, Adelaide Drive, Hobart Gardens, Borden Lane and dwellings on Lidbrook Close itself. This was the previous condition of the site before development took place. It used to be a transport yard, and the site is now largely built out with 49 dwellings. The permission was originally granted dating back to 1997 and 2001, and this application seeks to make variations to that historic permission. The reasons why this remains a live permission is set out in paragraphs 2.1 onwards of the December report, which is attached as Appendix A to this report. The short answer is that upon gaining permission in 2001, some foundations were dug, covered over, the site continued use as a transport yard for a number of years, and confirmation was given at the time by the council that the development had been lawfully commenced and could be recommenced at a later date. So the key changes that relate to the application now in front of members. So this is the site plan for the original development in 2001 as approved, and that application included a series of site levels showing how the levels would be designed across the site. The current application has essentially been built out with higher land levels, and if I go to the current plan, the levels essentially have been the site levels have essentially been increased on the site incrementally from Lidbrook Close from the left-hand side across to Hobart Gardens on the right-hand side, and the difference is between a rise of 100 mils closest to Lidbrook Close up to an increase in 1.8 metres in site levels at Hobart Gardens. So that's the key change that has been made through the development and is subject to this application for a minor material amendment. It's important for members to note that despite those changes, the site actually sits at quite a considerable level below most properties surrounding it. So from the pictures you can see there, this is photos taken of the boundary with Borden Lane, and members can see that the two-storey houses, essentially the first floors look out towards the fence line. Members will see that there's rooms in the roof there which do look above the fence line, and they'll also note from the report, from the December report, that the distance there between those windows and the back of properties on Borden Lane is in excess of 50 metres. This is the boundary with Adelaide Drive, and again members can see from those photos that the windows again look out onto the fence line of those properties. Just for information, the distance between the closest properties on this development site and the properties on Adelaide Drive is in the region of 16 metres. This is the boundary with Hobart Gardens. Again, the majority of properties, certainly up to two-storey level, face onto the bank and fence line, but there is a group of 4 dwellings in the middle of the site, which are 3 stories, and therefore there is some intervisibility that has been increased as a result of the increase in site levels between the plot and the existing neighbouring properties, but that distance is in excess of 33 metres. In terms of the impact on properties on Lidbrook Close, the difference in levels changes is more subtle. The difference between the closest plots, 1 and 3 to 5, are between 100 and 300 mils. Paragraph 7.2 of the report in Appendix A sets out how this minor material amendment application should be considered, and members should note that the process doesn't allow for full reconsideration of the entire scheme again, but should consider only the specific changes sought. Following the December Planning Committee and the committee meeting that took place, there were some amended plans and details have been received to address some of the concerns that were raised by members and members of the public, and these are set out in paragraph 1.4 of the report. And just to go through these briefly, there was an inaccuracy identified between plots 3 and 5, which, if I just use my mouse, are these plots here, and the properties at 23 and 25 Lidbrook Close, which has now been rectified in the new drawings. Further advice has been received from legal services on the ability to deal with the application as a minor material amendment, and the advice from legal is that this application and scheme does fall to be considered under this process. Some further landscaping has been provided to the south of plot 3. Seem to have lost my mouse, so here we go, which is this area here. If I just flick up to the plans that members would have seen in December, you'll see that that area, lost my mouse again, here we go, it's reappeared. So originally that area was shown as a larger garden area to plot 3, and likewise that area of land was attached to this property here at plot 1. The latest plans, gone the wrong way, the latest plans now have essentially taken that area of land outside of those gardens so it can be planted with landscaping, and there's a landscaping plan here which shows tree planting which is proposed in those areas there, which is proposed to just help soften any indirect views that can be seen from the plot 3 here towards the existing properties at Lidbrook Close. There was a concern raised about the fence line near the site access here, obscuring vehicles that were using the access way that serves the existing properties at Lidbrook Close. The application now proposes to reduce that fence line down to 900 mils so that it provides visibility for vehicles coming in and out of that access. There was also further details provided relating to bank stability, although members should also note that condition 9 as proposed requires further technical details to be provided, and there's also confirmation that a defective drainage gully has now been rectified. So the application is presented to members with a recommendation for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Members will be aware that we don't normally allow speakers after a site visit. Members will also be aware that that will shortly be coming for recommendation to change, so that is enabled in future. As there have been significant changes in this instance, I have decided to allow a speaker to come back. So I'd like to ask Anne Smith to speak. 3 minutes and there'll be a 30-second warning.
Lies, lies and more lies. That is what we have been told since we first raised our concerns about how close the houses on plots 3 to 5 were being erected. We first contacted the Planning Department in June 2020 regarding the lack of landscaping and our loss of privacy. In July 2020, we contacted our ward councillor, who took the matter up on our behalf and called in the planning application, now under discussion. Over the past 4 years, we have been told on numerous occasions that plots 3 to 5 are in the correct approved position. The latest occasion was at the Moat meeting held at the Coniston in February this year, when we were told quite emphatically that we were wrong. Plots 3 to 5 had not been repositioned and landscaping and screening would be planted along the boundary fence. They were unaware that they had actually laid a concrete path there. Now, according to the planning officer's report, plot 3 to 5 have been moved closer to our property by 1.4 metres, which they considered to be an insignificant amount. We disagree. Our patio window is only 9 metres from their boundary and approximately 17 metres from the nearest window of plot 3. Apparently, Moat have been using an ordnance survey map for measurements, which they say are not always accurate. With no landscaping or screening plan which would protect our privacy, plot 3 has an open view straight through our living room. This is unacceptable and appropriate action should be taken by Swale Council. They have a duty to consider the impact on existing residents, and to date they have failed to carry out this obligation. This planning application be refused until Moat reposition plots 3 to 5 with an appropriate landscaping and screening plan to give us back our privacy.
Thank you. I'll ask the ward councillor Shelley Cheeseman to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I attended the site meeting as I was informed by a number of concerned residents about it. I was not expecting what I saw. Plots 3 to 5 have been built at the wrong angle. I stood in the upstairs room of plot 3 and looked out the window straight into the lounges of the houses in Lidbrook Close. It also has been built too close. The other day I sat in the front room of one of the houses, and every time I turned my head, all I could see out the patio window was plots 3 to 5 imposing on me. On June 2020, a resident in Lidbrook Close emailed the council with concerns that these plots were being built incorrectly. At this stage, it was only the footings that had been laid, so it would have been advisable for the planning enforcement officer to investigate the complaint, as at this stage of construction it would have been far easier to have been corrected. The residents over the last few years have contacted the council many times. Where have these were these concerns looked at by the enforcement team? The banks at the back of Borden Lane are so steep as they have been cut back so much that a wall in Borden Lane fell down. I am concerned that with heavy rainfall it could bring the banks down. Already gaps are appearing under the fences of the gardens in Borden Lane. Also, the top windows of the flats look directly into the houses on Borden Lane. The townhouses that run along the back of Hobart Gardens have been built 1.8 metres higher than what they should have been. Now their top windows look into the houses and gardens in Hobart Gardens. It appears that when the architect drew up the plans, he took the perimeter of the fences surrounding the area and not the base of the banks. Consequently, the banks have been cut back many times so the houses can be fitted in. In one of the gardens we went into, the lawn had been laid. I noticed a wall around the garden, and in the back wall there were a row of little holes going along about a metre from the ground. When I asked what they were, I was told they were for surface runoff water. So given that plot, their very own waterfalls when it rains. Very strange indeed. These are just some of the changes that have occurred from the original plan. I hope that since the site visit, these have all been addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cheeseman. Before I'll move the officer's recommendation, seconded Councillor Booth, thank you. I just say I am appalled that this committee was provided with a set of inaccurate designs on which to make a judgment. That is really unacceptable. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Where do I start with this debacle? I'm absolutely stunned, Mr. Chairman, that we've got another set of drawings come forward now trying to legitimise the placing of plots on this site. Aren't we supposed to be considering the minor amendment on the plans that were before us at the December meeting, and also that we'd studied at the site visit? So I'm completely confused as to how Moat Housing can all of a sudden just come forward with an amended set of drawings and say, oh, we've done another set of drawings, we want you to consider these instead of the previous ones that we should have built to. Moving on to plots 3 to 5. Our officer admits that they've been moved. It's taken God knows how many years for these to be measured, and the council to admit that the Moat Housing have built these houses in the wrong position. It says at 4.8 on page 82 that previous drawings would have been taken from the Ordnance Survey data, which is not always accurate. Well, surely it's incumbent on the developer to make sure that their measurements are accurate so that the plots are built in the correct position in the first place. Not just stick them up and, you know, hope that they're going to be in the right position. I then come on to the dwellings that back onto the houses in Baldon Lane. As Councillor Cheeseman alluded to, the banks there have been cut back so much that a wall did fall down, and there are gaps underneath fences there. And because these dwellings have been built 1.8 metres above where they're supposed to be, this gives an absolutely uninterrupted view straight into the gardens of the properties in Baldon Lane, absolutely destroying their residential amenity should they wish to use them for whatever purpose they choose to, at whatever time of year they choose to. They shouldn't be overlooked. And if these properties have been built to the proper specs, at the proper height, we wouldn't be here having this problem now. Right, where do we go from here? We look at the plots on Hobart Gardens, also overlooking because they've been built 1.8 metres too high. We're asked to look at these as minor material amendments. A cock-up of 1.8 metres is not a minor material amendment or consideration. It is a major consideration. And I now refer to the same developer who this council took enforcement action against at Seager Road in Sheerness back a few years ago. And I've taken a leaf out of Councillor Booth's book here. I've actually got the inspector's report and I've read it very carefully. He says, in my view, there is a significant divergence from the approved plans in terms of the design and height of the units. Well, this can be applied to not the actual physical size of the buildings, but because they've been raised up on raised land. He also goes on to say that the divergence does not relate to a limited number of units but applies to all units, none of which comply with the approved plans. He then goes on to say, when taken in the round, I consider that the variations from the approved scheme are of such a magnitude that the development and construction is essentially a different scheme to that approved. We then move on further. The inquiry heard that from a number of parties who expressed concerns that a dangerous precedent would be set if the development were to be approved on the grounds that it would indicate that it was acceptable to erect new developments without complying with the terms of planning permissions. Moat housing. There seems to be a pattern going on here. Maybe, I don't know, perhaps they've got...
We do need to focus on the planning in front of us, Councillor Clark.
I am, but that is a very important part, the fact that moat housing seem unable or unwilling to comply with planning permissions. They seem unable to or unwilling to comply with site levels. So this all goes to the fact, Mr. Chairman. Also raised at the site visit was issues relating to perceived crime that could be what's the word I'm looking for, taking place on site. Not only are there little pathways and little back alleyways where the drug dealers could get in and do their little £10 deals, there's also the bank that was originally where the car park was when it was Nichols Yard. There is a slight bank there, and the bank has been levelled forward slightly, so that anyone wishing to can climb up that bank, go across the little flat section and over the back gates into the houses in Adelaide Drive. And actually looking at the development, as Councillor Cheeseman alluded to and said, it appears that the measurements for the site when this was originally planned out were taken from the boundary fences around the site. And this is why they've had to cut back, as Councillor Cheeseman said, the banking all the way around, destabilising it considerably. When this was Nichols Yard, the cliff faces were sheer, but they had been fitted with like a netting type substance with long bolts going through that netting type substance to stabilise the banks. As we saw at the site visit, the banks are completely unstable, they're just mud, and I'm frightened for the residents who might live in any of these houses. The fact that they might be out in their back garden one day after it's rained and the whole bank along Baldwin Lane or along Hobart Gardens comes down and actually wipes them and their houses out. Yeah, I think I've said pretty much all I need to say, Mr. Chairman. This development is a shambles. It's a debacle that shouldn't be allowed, and I shall certainly be voting against the officer's recommendation, and I would urge members to do the same and send a clear message to Moat Housing that they cannot just ride roughshod over their planning permissions that they've given, raise site levels and move buildings at will. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. The few of us that turned up for the site visit, 1.5 metres or 1.8 metres doesn't sound a great deal, but when you were there and you could see how close that house was to the boundary fence and the neighbouring property, 1.5 metres is quite considerable. we've been told we've got rectified drawings. Well, that's great, but we haven't got rectified buildings. I am concerned at the closeness of the proximity of properties 3, I think it's especially number 3, that one there on the corner, to the boundary, and to have lost another 1.5 metres is quite significant. So further, the those of us on the site visit will have remembered the sheer banks at the side of Borden Lane were quite horrendous. The stability of those, as Councillor Clark said, a good bit of rain, and mind you, we've had a good bit of rain, haven't we? Last 5 years, I think. But it did raise cause for concern, and have they addressed that in this one, officer?
So if I can just point members to recommended condition 9, that requires a slope stability assessment to be prepared by a suitably qualified person, which we'd expect to be an engineer, to be submitted to the council for approval, and that is to identify the gradients of the slopes and any further measures that are required to ensure that the slopes are stabilised. Thank you.
Councillor Booth.
Thank you, Chairman. If I'm not mistaken, I think, and I refer back to the commentary Councillor Clark made, and I thank him for his endorsement for keeping hold of documentation and actually reviewing it, because it is important, Chairman. I think there were, again, respectfully, 5 or 6 people present this evening that were around at the Seager Road debacle, if we're using that word. Come with me, Mr. Chairman, to meet the residents of Seager Road and let them explain to you what this council did when enforcement told the applicant at the time to change the building. I'll tell you what they did. Nothing. That's quite a sombre thought. And that was circa 1.8 metres. 6 feet. I challenge you, Mr. Chairman, if I was to do that on an extension on my property, I'd probably get to 2 feet, with respect. However, we have to look at what is before us, and we have to separate enforcement matters with planning matters, because we really need to separate them. What has happened, and if that is contrary to what has been approved and proven, then that is an enforcement matter. I'm struggling somewhat unusually, Mr. Chairman. I'm not normal for struggling, but I am, with a plethora of matters, not necessarily restricted to the banking, not necessarily restricted to buildings that I would suggest are closer than we are being advised. But we are, again, we're stepping on enforcement matters, and I don't want to do that. So I'll carry on listening. Thank you.
The officer wishes to say something.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I just want to clarify to members that after the site visit in December, myself and an enforcement officer actually measured the distance between the properties at 23 and 25 Lidbrook Close and the plots at 3 to 5, and identified the discrepancy between the plans that had been presented to us at the time and the actual measurements on the site. These drawings do show the buildings as constructed. So it is not the case that the members are looking at a plan here and buildings have been built in a different location. The other point I would make as well is that the applicant has carried out surveys of plots 3 to 5 and has stated very clearly that they have not been built in the wrong place. We have looked and taken measurements and used things like the boundary line with Borden Lane to determine how far away the buildings on previous approved plans were from that boundary and how far the buildings are now, and they marry up with each other. The issue that the applicant raised was that from the original 2001 permission, the site layout and the neighbouring buildings that were identified on the site plan, they felt that there was an inaccuracy in terms of how those neighbouring buildings had been plotted, not how buildings had been plotted within the site itself. And that was identified as what was causing the discrepancy between the as-built drawings and the plan that was in front of members in December. So this plan that members are looking at the moment on the screen does accurately show the location of the buildings on site as built. Thank you.
And when did we receive that?
This plan was received, I believe it was January.
So they provided the plan showing the site, the buildings as they are, whereas previously they'd provided us with plans that were wrong.
That showed a discrepancy with where the neighbouring buildings had been plotted, not where the development within the site had been plotted.
Yeah, hang on in the gallery. Bit of decorum. Okay, Councillor Winklis.
Thank you, Chair. Unfortunately, I couldn't attend the site meeting because I was getting over operation, but that's not here or there at this meeting. Can the officer please put up again the bank? Is it that we're concerned about, please? Because I wasn't there. Yeah. So is that earth there we're talking about? Right. I would say if there's more heavy rain, that is going to be a total earth slip. So if we pass this tonight, what is the developer going to do to shore that up? Anything?
Yeah.
Would you like
9?
Sorry.
Apologies.
Would you like to repeat what you said earlier?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, as I said earlier, there's a condition recommended which requires a bank stability report to be provided to demonstrate how the bank is stable and what measures are necessary, if any, to further strengthen and stabilise the bank.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Kavanagh.
Thank you. First and foremost, I'm disappointed that no one from Moat is here. It would have been useful. From what I can gather, I remember the committee meeting before the site visit. None of the fears have been allayed. The banks are still as they are. The levels are probably even worse than what I'd thought. I didn't go to the site visit, but I've certainly been down into Lidbrook Close. I've seen how close the houses are adjoining the new estate. It is not the people who live in Lidbrook Close's fault that the plans were wrong. I mean, I did hear people say there, and I was going to say too, did the houses move in Lidbrook Close? I suspect not. I cannot, and your condition 9, I have no confidence now that they will give us an accurate report, because as to yet, we haven't had anything accurate. And if there are holes underneath the fence already, like Councillor Cheeseman has said, and one wall's come down, it's already unstable. It's not a question of what measures they'll need to take if necessary. There is clearly something necessary. Cutting back a bank to maximise the housing is not on. Planning is here to be adhered to. us individuals, like Councillor Booth said, if we put something in, we would have to produce something to the millimetre accurately. It should be the case for everyone. Thank you.
Perhaps it's about time Moat stopped using Ordnance Survey maps and found GPS. Councillor Hunt.
Thank you. A lot of what I was going to say, Andy said. Thanks, Andy. But I just wonder, everything I've heard so far tonight, I just wonder if anyone's actually read the report, because everything that has been raised is in the report. As has been said, the houses haven't been built in the wrong place. They are as approved, and it's just that the houses outside the development was what was in a different place on the map. And even now that has been...
Sorry, I must ask for quiet when a councillor's speaking.
Nobody has moved any houses, but obviously the map that was used was incorrect for the houses that are off of the site. Now it's been changed so that we do know exactly how the distance is, and looking at 4.11 and 4.12 of the report, there's obviously a lot of work that officers have gone into, and there's great detail in there of even if that change, or if that was correct in the beginning, the distances are still within what we would normally allow for overlooking and the way that they're laid out. I would be concerned looking at that photo there with that soil running down there, but as has been said, there's a condition there that all of that has to be looked at and made sure that that was going to be put into place. And I would say that it wouldn't be looking like that when we do come to, if it is approved, once those conditions have been done and it's all been looked at. And if that doesn't happen, then enforcement action can be taken. And I do understand what's been said with Seager Road, and reading out from there about the differences, and the inspector saying that yes, there is clear differences and it's not as approved. But we do need to remember as well that Seager Road, we actually lost the appeal on that, and it was all approved and it's been built as it was. So I don't know how that's an argument. I would say there's nothing here saying, especially now, and it was good that there was a site meeting, because these discrepancies have been dealt with and officers have put on, seems to be a lot of work, and it's good that we've got proper plans, and I can see that there is no reason now to be arguing that there's any way to go against this. So officers, well done on the work, and I think it should be now approved.
So is it that the sorry, that the planning permission was given on defective documents? Or is it that the documents were correct when submitted and houses moved afterwards? Or is it just in January, after the site visit and these discrepancies came forward, that we actually got an accurate plan? Have we ever had an accurate plan beforehand? Officer?
Well, this is the original site plan from 2001. And I think that the neighbouring properties were hand drawn onto that site plan. I'm not sure what information they had at the time in terms of accuracy there, but the plots at numbers 23 and 25 sit slightly further away from the boundary than they actually do in reality. And this is the plan that we now have in front of us that shows the relationship properly and as surveyed.
I'm sorry, well, has a note been passed? I have to ask, will that note be handed in now? Councillor, yeah, Councillor Clark. We really cannot. Yeah, we really can't have non-councillors doing that. Yeah, but not committee members. I don't know what you want to do with it. Okay.
Perhaps you could act on what's on the note, Mr. Chairman.
Am I allowed to look at it? I'm on my judgment. Page 4 of the slides shows the plan facing one way. The photo on the slides show a different angle.
That's page 4.
Right, this is page 4. It's called page 5, but
I think there's a mistake there because it goes. Oh, in fact, yeah, the pages are slightly out of sync. Which plan are you referring to?
this is page 4.
Right, this one. Okay.
Right, and the photo on the slides show a different angle.
I'm assuming references to that one.
Okay.
Not really sure what the relevance of that is, to be honest with you.
Yeah, obviously forget all that. Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will be very brief. I remember that wet, wintry 20th of December day, and I think it was being there that really brought it home. The closeness between blocks 3, 4 and 5 to the property that the lady was talking about is quite significant, and the banking as well. I think I mentioned that I was quite concerned about the banking on the day. It was a case of you had to be there to believe it, but obviously there's not a lot we can do when it's already been approved. But Moat Homes, this is not their first time at the rodeo. They should know by now what they're doing, how they should be using more accurate measurements. As I said, they're not a first-time player here. They know what they're doing. So to come before us and give us inaccurate diagrams is, not to put too fine a point on it, Chairman, an absolute joke. But we are in a bit of a tough spot on this one as it's already been approved. But we've got to get a message back.
Sorry, it hasn't been approved,
well,
Councillor Watson.
No,
it's
but
been built.
the proposal in the first place had the permission in the first place. We've got to send a message back to Moat, Chairman, that this isn't good enough.
Officer Kerry would like to come in.
Thank you, Mike. I just wanted to contribute and say, this is a retrospective application, and yes, I understand some of the concerns that have been raised around Moat housing, but just to pull back to the considerations of this application, this is a Section 73 application, so we're considering whether the revisions and the changes from the approved drawings are a non-material amendment. We can't use this application as a catalyst to send a message to Moat housing. We have to determine the application fairly.
Yes, that's very true. Councillor Clark.
Thank you for allowing me to come back, Mr. Chairman. Just a brief point to answer Councillor Hunt's assertion that we did lose the appeal at Seager Road, but it was only because of the fact that the inspector said that the planning enforcement system is intended to be remedial rather than punitive. So perhaps if that would have been asking them to just lower the buildings down. But anyway, it goes to cause, Mr. Chairman. Following from what Kerry said, I would submit that these aren't minor amendments to a scheme already built. These are major amendments. 1.8 metres, 6 feet is not minor in anyone's book. It cannot be considered as minor. If it was minor, we'd be talking maybe, 20, 30 mils here, 50 mil there, something like that, but not 6 feet. So as I stated previously, Mr. Chairman, this is a complete debacle. We had a public meeting with Moat back in January, I think it was. And Moat came along and they were all lovey-dovey and promising the...
Can we not be derogatory anymore about Moat?
Mr. Chairman, I'm just telling you what they promised. And they've been using those promises that they made at that meeting as a tick box to try and get this through. as I say, it's not a minor material amendment, it is a major material amendment, and I would urge members of the committee to refuse this application.
Thank you. Oh, our legal officer has his hand up. Matthew? Perhaps that point's been covered, thank you. Okay, so we basically have what's in front of us. Are we content with the changes? I think that's what we're asked to do. Minor material amendment to allow changes to approved site levels and landscaping. I do consider that, and those on the site visit will have seen it, 1.8 metres or 1.5 metres on plots 3, 4 and 5 is, in my view, considerable, and I haven't heard anything tonight that reassures me that this has been done properly. The other issues, I think, we have good conditions. We have attempted to address them. That leaves the changes there as, I think, the main item that concern me, the impacts on 3, 4 and 5. So, those in favour of the officer's recommendation? 1. Yeah. Those against the officer's recommendation? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Abstentions? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that application has fallen. Can I have a motion? Kerry?
Thank you, Mike. I was just hoping that we could clarify what the reasons for refusal are.
What's just what I was going to do?
Sorry, thank you.
we haven't had a motion for refusal yet.
Sorry.
Right. Would anybody like to put a motion forward now? Deferral, refusal, site visit? Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move that this application be refused. I will, if you give me a couple of minutes, if I have a seconder, I will try to come up with some reasons for my moving the motion.
Right, does anybody else want to go? Well, I'll propose rejection on the impacts of the changes on units 3, 4 and 5.
I would add to that, Mr. Chairman, I totally agree with you there. I would also add loss of amenity value to the properties in Baldon Lane, Hobart Gardens and Adelaide Drive. I did think of another one just then. Yeah, the fact that the site has been built out not in accordance with the original planning permission, and the ground levels have been raised by a significant level. I don't know how that could be worded, but
have you got harm associated with the change in levels? As the change, is there a harm caused by the change of levels that would have led it not to have been permitted in the first place?
yeah, I believe there is, Mr. Chairman.
No, I want you to tell me what it is.
Overlooking. There is a considerable amount of flooding on site, so I would cite surface water runoff. Give me a minute.
I'm not sure that surface flooding was caused by the change of heights. We would have to tie that to the change of the landscaping, or the land forming, I suppose. Okay, we'll take a 15-minute deferral whilst the officers discuss what we've got. Has anybody else got any are further potential reasons for refusal I'd like to throw in?
Not being happy about the banking. I'm not being happy the fact that they'll put in something if there was anything needed. That's too woolly. There's already a problem. People are going to lose their gardens by the looks of it, and the houses might get swamped by mud. That'll solve that, I suppose.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, we'll take a 15-minute deferral. You may leave the room. Okay. Everybody back? Yep, excellent. Okay, the proposal is to defer to officers to seek amendments from the applicant to mitigate overlooking from plots 3 to 5 onto numbers 23 and 25 Lidbrook Close. Delegated to discussion with ward members and the chair, and in the absence of an acceptable scheme, to refuse on the following basis: that the proposed development, by virtue of the movement of plots and changes to land levels, will give rise to an unacceptable impact upon the living conditions in terms of overlooking of dwellings at 23 and 25 Lidbrook Close, and as such the proposal is considered to be an unacceptable minor material amendment. In light of this, the proposal is considered to be contrary to the Local Plan 2017 and the MPPF. If there's a decision of a difference of opinion on any scheme that the developer puts forward, it will be brought back to the committee. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Clark. Anybody wish to debate that? Okay, I'll move it. Those in favour, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Those against? 3. And abstentions? 1. So that motion has passed. Not sure if you understood that in the gallery. Basically, we have highlighted the overlooking on from plots 3, 4 and 5. If a developer can come forward with an acceptable way of ameliorating that, then we would look at it. If they don't, then it is the application stands to be will be refused. So I hope that clarifies. Councillor Booth, you're not clarified.
No, I'm clarified, Chairman, and I voted against it. I'd like to make reference to the minute in the disappointment that has taken 30 minutes of our time this evening to come up with that. I'm very disappointed. Thank you.
I'm not willing to rush good decision making. Okay then, we'll move on to deferred item 1, as we make rocking progress. This is reference number 23-502-365 full, 77 to 83 and 87 London Road, Sittingbourne. And can I ask the officer to give us an update?
Thank you, Chair. There's no update since the publication of the report. I'll just take members through the slides. So just as a reminder, the item was deferred from the 8th of February Planning Committee for a site visit, which the Planning Working Group undertook on the 22nd of February this year. The application relates to a site at the corner of Borden Lane and London Road, and currently accommodates a terrace of 4 dwellings fronting London Road, and an existing brick building within the site that accommodates 7 flats. It's proposed to demolish the 4 terrace dwellings and erect 20 new dwellings and 2 blocks of flats. The existing block containing 7 dwellings would be retained. So Chair, just the red line site, an aerial of the site, the London Road frontage. The right-hand image shows the entrance to the site. These slides show the parts of the site bordering Borden Lane, including the wall with the World War II gun loops, which is locally listed. Photos showing the site itself, left-hand image showing the access leading up. The middle photo shows the top of the site, which is something of a plateau, and that view is looking south towards 2 Borden Lane. The right-hand image is looking west. The image shows the proposed site layout. The bottom or the southern portion of the site would accommodate what's known as Block A. Block B is the existing building that's to be retained and refurbished, and on the London Road frontage is a new proposed Block C. This image is the front elevation of Block A, which is the building on the southern, or the deep into the site, further away from London Road, the southern end of the site, which would be adjacent to 2 Borden Lane. The left-hand image is the front or the London Road elevation of Block C. The right-hand image is that side elevation of Block C. And the existing building to be retained and refurbished, Block B. The left-hand image is, and obviously this is an existing building, but is the elevation fronting Borden Lane. And the right-hand image is the elevation within the site. An aerial view of Block B, which is existing and to be refurbished. Just to highlight, Chair, when we were on site and we walked around on Borden Lane, Block B is actually hoarded from the street, so you can't really see it from Borden Lane. But in actual fact, just between Block B and the wall, which has got the gun loops, is a pedestrian access which leads from Borden Lane into the site, and there's some concern that it might be more convenient for residents to park on Borden Lane and enter the site to access their flats. To discourage that, the applicant's proposing to install a barrier, a wall, a fence in that location. I'll just highlight that for members. In this location here, so it would simply be more convenient for future residents to, for example, park on site and access their flats on site rather than park in Borden Lane and then have to walk all the way around and then up through the access way to get to their apartments. With the exception of one flat in Block B, which has a front door opening out onto Borden Lane, which is an existing situation in the existing building. For them, it wouldn't make sense to block access to their front door, and we've looked at the measurements and so forth. There's simply not enough width to fence them in, as it were, and force them to access the site from London Road. So what we're saying, for all of the flats apart from one, they would have to access the site from London Road up through the main entrance to the site. For that single flat, which has access into Borden Lane, what we would do is provide some form of a gate with a fob or something of the like so that they can access their flat from Borden Lane, but in terms of accessing bins and bike stores and car parking spaces and so forth, they would have some means to actually get into the site directly from Borden Lane rather than have to walk all the way around to London Road. And the conditions recommended to secure that, Chair. This is the elevation of the existing Block B, and you can see in this left-hand location that there is actually a street frontage. It addresses Borden Lane, and there's actually a front door to flat 1 which opens out, and that's where we're saying that you wouldn't want to prevent access to Borden Lane for that flat. Rather, all other flats would have to be accessed from London Road from within the site, but for that single flat would provide some sort of a gate within the wall next to the locally listed wall so that they could get access to bin stores, bike stores and what have you. Chair, another issue that came up on site was the concern that the site has lain largely derelict for over a decade, and there's some concern that if the development were consented and demolition of, for example, the houses on Borden Lane took place, and then development stalled, you would be left with not only a derelict site within the site, but actually with a derelict frontage to London Road. And some comfort was sought to ensure that if the developer commenced work, that they would carry on and bring forward the benefits associated with the new Block A and Block C and refurbishment of Block B. To demonstrate that they're committed to completing the development, the work set out at paragraph 3.4 of the report would be undertaken ahead of demolition. This includes pre-construction works and refurbishment of the locally listed wall on Borden Lane. Thank you, Chairman. Subject to conditions and planning obligations set out in the report, approval is recommended.
Thank you. And another well-attended site visit. Not. And a huge shame that KCC didn't send the officer that they said they would send, because one of the issues was the exiting the site, and a KCC officer would have been very useful, and I think it's a great shame that there wasn't anyone there. No member of the public. Would the ward member, Councillor Shelley Cheeseman?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank the councillors for approving a site visit, which I attended. I still have concerns about the, as you say, the entrance out onto the London Road. It is so close to where you go into the garage, and that worries me. And there's also a bus stop there, and you then have the flooding at the bottom of Borden Lane and Chalkwell, as well as the traffic there. So that still is a worry to me. I would like to thank the officer. He has kept myself and Councillor Clark well up to date on everything that he's doing, and also helping, I think, the residents that live in the 4 cottages that are going to be demolished, putting stipulations in that, you know, no things have to be done before that can be started on there, because they don't want them to lose their homes and then a year or 2 years later it's still not been done. So thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would very much like to echo Councillor Cheeseman's thanks to the officer. He has gone above and beyond with this application, keeping us informed at every stage, from the initial designs that came in that were, shall we say, not as aesthetically pleasing as the ones we've got now, although I still have some reservations. Yeah, thank you for that, Matt. It's much appreciated. Yes, I still do have concerns. Speaking to the builder on site, they did state to me that they are committed to building out this scheme and to renovating Block B to the standard that is required for habitation. But there's a caveat to that. They did say that they got so many other schemes that they were doing at the moment that it would be a minimum of 12 to 18 months before they would start work on site. Now that does give me some pause for concern, seeing as alluded to, the site has lain empty for many years, and Block B for at least the last 10 or more years. I'm slightly concerned about the overlooking to some residents in Borden Lane, although that has been mitigated against by obscure glazing in the stairwells to the side, I believe it is. But there are proposed to be balconies which could give rise to some overlooking. I move on to the flooding that Councillor Cheeseman alluded to. Anyone that goes along that stretch of the London Road knows that as soon as it rains very heavily, at the bottom of Borden Lane there is like a river runs across, and I am concerned that concreting over the site, the water is going to run down the driveway and add to the possible flooding. Again, as Councillor Baldock alluded to, it was very disappointing that the promised KCC Highways officer didn't turn up. because those members that attended the site meeting, I think we all had concerns about the ingress and egress onto the site. Although the sight lines are being made slightly better, cars do zoom up the London Road and come across at quite an acute angle to enter the petrol station, just a few metres away. And yes, there is a bus stop there. And you've got the traffic coming out of Baldon Lane, Chalkwell Road, Victoria Road, and indeed Lidbrook Close, with the increased traffic from the residents when they eventually move into that development. Touched on those. Just from the original report, I would ask members when they are deliberating on this application to give some weight to the Human Rights Act and the Equalities Act as mentioned in the original report. There is at least one disabled person lives in those cottages, terrace, whatever you like to call it. But having said all that, Highways haven't raised any objections, so we don't really have a leg to stand on with that. So reluctantly, providing that the developer complies with all conditions that are in the report, I would have to support this application. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. On the site visit, there's a very nice little Victorian shed, brick shed, which is, I think, due to be demolished. Its retention wouldn't harm or wouldn't impact on the development. I was just wondering if we'd be able to protect that particular feature. Matt?
Thank you, Chair. So in terms of the feature that we're referring to, said that members could just see this red line which is on the southern boundary, and that's that brick-built Victorian outbuilding. The only thing I would say, Chair, is I can see that so there's actually not just this grey area for turning, but this green area is also so that the refuse vehicles can do a three-point turn. Taking account of the footpath, the width of the access way, and obviously a desire to make sure that the access way isn't hard up against the neighbour's fence, I think the swept path would actually encroach on that building. So, for example, if you were wanting to avoid that, you would actually have to. It would be quite a you'd need to move the entire building, which would affect the amenity space and potentially the wildlife space and so forth. So the other thing, Chair, is that building's not proposed for retention, so it's just in terms of looking at the application in front of us, I think the swept path analysis would show that the building would be clipped by vehicles. That green area towards the bottom here is actually part of, manoeuvring area, and then the grey area. It would be difficult to see how you could keep the outbuilding as well as the footpath as well as the turning path without moving the entire development. Thank you.
Okay, that's a shame, but okay. No more speakers. Vote in favour of the officer's recommendation to approve. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Against? 1, 2. Any abstentions? Okay, so that's passed. 2.1. The next item is item 2.1, reference number 23/505-480/full, erection of a detached chalet bungalow. Can we have the officer's report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Just a very small update for members. If the application is approved, The applicant is required to make a SAMS payment to mitigate against impacts on special protection areas, which I'm sure members will be well aware of, that we seek for all new residential developments. So in the event that members do agree with the recommendation, then it will be subject to securing that SAMS payment before planning permission is granted. Just a very quick presentation of the application. This is the application site here. It's within the built confines of Minster. Access to the site is currently part of the garden to Ash Tree Villa, and the proposal is to erect a 3-bed chalet bungalow within part of the garden to that property. This is the aerial photo here. The street scene is quite varied in this immediate locality. You've got 2-storey dwellings, including Ash Tree Villa to the east, and a single-storey building which has been divided into residential units to the west of the site. That's the site plan of the current site. Members will see there's a row of conifers at the moment along that boundary. They would be removed as part of the application. This is the proposal. So you can see it's a detached building that sits in the garden. Parking would be to the rear of the site, and access is out onto Parsonage Chase, and that's the existing situation for Ash Tree Villa and some other properties in that small grouping as well. Those are the elevations. So members can see that there's accommodation in the roof with one relatively modest dormer in the side of the building. Floor plans. The dormer itself is used or would be used to accommodate a bathroom. That window would be obstacle glazed. And this section drawing just demonstrates the relationship with neighbouring buildings, and those lines are indicators that the proposal complies with BRE light guidelines and will not negatively impact upon neighbouring properties. These photographs of the site. So that's the semi-detached property on the left-hand side. Ash Tree Villa is the right-hand side property there in the picture on the right. This is the rear garden with the conifers that would be removed as part of the proposal. And the photograph on the right-hand side shows the bungalows to the west. Those bungalows are on a higher ground level, and members can also see the area that would be used for car parking. Members will also note that there are no objections to the application. The Parish Council support the application. It's purely in front of members because the applicant is a member of staff. Thank you.
I'll move the officer's recommendation. Secondly, Councillor Booth, thank you. Okay, those in favour. You wish to speak? Yep, go on then.
Please, thank you, Chairman. Historically, this council has never been in favour of this kind of development, and I think members that hopefully will be familiar with the area would consider the overbearing and significant change of the street scene to actually put this development in place. And it's something, again, Chairman, that this council has been very strong in protecting. You're right, the only reason it's here is because it's a staff member, and that gives it no more weight, whether it was you or I, Chairman. But I just think members need to be very careful about overcooking the street scene. There is some formal wording for that, and I think it will do that, but it is a decision for this committee.
Okay, I see no other speakers. Those in favour of the officer recommendation, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Those against? 1. And any abstentions? That's carried. Who else a member of staff? Okay, 2.2, reference number 23503055 full, change of use of a garden studio to a health clinic. Who's doing that? Claire.
Thank you, Chairman. Okay. Okay, this application is retrospective and it's seeking planning permission to change the use of the outbuilding from a garden studio to a health clinic. You can see that the site is located in a residential area in the built-up area boundary of Sittingbourne, and it backs onto a recreation ground. How do I make this?
You close that down. Right. Minimise it.
Bear with me, sorry.
Then if you do the plus.
Oh, yeah, okay. Can't get it to. That's it. Okay, sorry. Okay. So number 7 Chegworth Gardens is here, and number 5 is to the left. The outbuilding is the building at the bottom of the garden, the grey roof. So from this photograph, we've got number 5 on the left and number 7 on the right. The outbuilding is in the back garden of number 7. You can see, just about see, there's a walkway to in between these two dwellings. When the clients arrive, can't see my photos. Sorry, bear with me. Okay, that's better. When they arrive at number 7, there's a sign on the door that directs them to the walkway, where there's a doorbell, and once they go through the gate, then that leads down to the outbuilding in the back garden. So this is the entrance to the health clinic, and once inside there's a small reception area, and then it's mostly used for the treatment area with a small kitchen and a toilet. Clients will, there is no parking spaces for the clients to use, so they will have to park in the road, but as you can see, Chegworth Gardens is a wide road, and having spoken to Highways, they don't raise any issues on the basis that there'll be one client every hour. The occupiers of number 7 still have a reasonably sized garden, and you can see from the photograph there's no windows on that side elevation that would result in any mutual loss of privacy. And there is a rear access for both the occupiers and for the anyone in the health clinic, that they can access a recreation ground. Members will note that this is being reported to committee because the applicant is related to a council employee. The officer's recommendation is that the application should be approved for the reasons set out in the report, subject to a section 106 agreement that would mean that the land cannot be severed from the main dwelling, and that's to protect the occupiers of number 7 Chegworth Gardens. Thank you.
Thank you. A little alarmed we're now extending this to relatives of Swirl employees, a close relative. Otherwise it'd be person the Swirl employee saw in the street soon. Okay, anybody want to talk on this? Oh, sorry, I officially move the officer's recommendation. Seconded Councillor Booth. Councillor Clark. Oh, you wish to speak as a ward member?
Yes, I do, please. I was aware of this last year, but I was called in by the neighbour in number 5 with his concerns about the times of which the health clinic was going to operate, and it was stated in here in 7.5 that it's going to be from 8 till 6 on weekdays, and then Saturdays it's going to be 1 till 6. Sorry, 1 to 8, 8 to 1 on Saturdays. This is what they put forward in the actual application. This was not what the neighbours were told. They were told it's going to be 9 to 5 and maybe 1 Saturday a month. But that's neither here nor that's what they're saying. But he was concerned that because it's changed occupancy from a tattoo parlour that was barely used to a clinic now that is going to be used quite a lot, he was concerned about the hours that they were going to keep. So I said to him, then you need to keep a log of the comings and goings of the clients using that, and he did so. And he's given me that log. It starts from August 23 right up to April this year. And he's kept a log on 18 Saturdays. They exceeded the 1 p.m. time limit. That's 18. And weekdays, they've exceeded 8 times, up to 6 p.m. And that was from the August 23 to April 24. That's 9 months. So I'm concerned that the time stated here won't be kept to. And it is an inconvenience to a residential area. It is right on a bend, and he's already had cars parked across his driveway, and not just one. It's not just one client, it's one client coming and going, plus the owner's cars and the car of the person renting the building at the back. So my concern is that we need to change the times, opening and closing times, to make sure that it's not an inconvenience or a problem to the residents. Thank you.
Okay, just to clarify, are you saying that you want the applied times stuck to, or do you want the changes, the times that have been applied for changed?
Ideally, I would like it to go back to what the applicant originally told the residents, 9 to 5, and the odd Saturdays. Now, only because I don't trust him to keep his word that he's going to stick to these times. So it needs to come back to a 9 to 5 and 1 or 2 Saturdays a month, not every Saturday, because he's saying that they've exceeded that 18 times, and not just a couple of hours here to an hour. 7 o'clock on Saturdays, twice. Up at 10 to 5 on a Saturday, 5:20, 2:40, 3 o'clock. I mean, they're not just by a few minutes, they're hours difference.
Okay, but at the moment it's unregulated. If his planning application goes through, then it would have regulated hours, and to work outside of that would be in breach. So that would open them to enforcement. At the moment, because there isn't any condition or anything we can hold them to, yeah, you're right, they can operate as late into the evening as they like. But the hours that are included in here, if they went outside of them, they'd be in breach of the permission.
But I still think those hours are exorbitant. They're too long, especially on a Saturday, and there's nothing wrong with 9 to 5. I mean, it's a residential area. These are retired people down there, the majority of them. You know, they want to lie in occasionally. And the other factor is that in the summer months, the doors have been left open, and he can hear the consultations going on in his back garden, and some of them are quite private. Being a health clinic, the nature of the conversations do get very personal, and he's asked them to close the doors, but they say it's too hot. They've got no air conditioning there, and he is constantly hearing consultations between the patient, the client, and the therapist there.
Okay, any comment on that? Claire?
Which bit specifically, the hours or the door being open?
I think the hours, well, yeah, both then.
Yeah, well, as Chairman pointed out, what's been happening at the moment is that there is no planning permission in place, so there's been no way that we can control it via the planning process to make them adhere to hours that we're trying to impose on them. If we grant a planning permission and there's a condition there, then there is potential enforcement action if they're operating outside those hours and there's harm being caused by doing so. In terms of the door being open, I think that's a tricky one to try and resolve. I mean, I don't think there's any way we could condition that on the basis we'd never be able to. I don't think we'd ever be able to enforce that. I mean, we can, an idea, perhaps to put an informative on, to sort of, to make the applicant aware of this potential issue.
The applicant has been, the actual people working in there have been told,
right,
and it's patient confidentiality that's being breached here.
Yeah, I suppose that's a problem for the person visiting the health centre rather than the neighbour. That's for themselves to deal with. I would, if I was going to,
having to listen to intimate details and
Okay,
beyond the point.
Can we condition places that have music, but they have to keep the windows shut and the doors shut? Could we put a similar condition on this, that during consultation we have to keep the doors shut?
Well, I don't think we'd be able to do that on the basis. I don't think it would meet the test of being enforceable, because if someone just opened the door, it would. How would we ever do something about it?
That doesn't mean we can't make it a condition just because we can't enforce it.
Yeah, that's one of the main reasons why you can't put a condition down. There's tests that you have to meet for a planning condition. One of them,
like more enforcement officers.
I don't understand the point.
It wouldn't be the number of enforcement
Turning
officers.
it down because you can't enforce it.
I'm giving advice as to why that condition wouldn't be appropriate.
Okay, come on. You couldn't enforce it because you have to open the door to get in and out. But you are in a position to not give your consent if you wish. I did see some hands. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I know this area extremely well. Once or twice a month I'm delivering leaflets around there. And I must admit that it seems a very private area at the back of the property. I've never seen the gate open. Admittedly, I haven't been round there on weekends very much, so I can't speak to traffic parking round there at weekends. You can't see the healthcare shed, room, whatever you like to call it, from the road when the gate is shut. I do have echo some of the concerns that Councillor Stephen has mentioned. With I particularly I know, and I won't say, but I am aware of what the studio health care treatments are, and I particularly wouldn't want the door open when discussing my needs with the therapist. To say that it's too hot in there, I don't know whether we could put some sort of advisory on, and again I asked the officer this question, to request that they keep the door shut for privacy reasons, They must have some sort of heating in there for the winter. So wouldn't it be possible for them to put a portable air conditioning unit in? Because I would think that if you were a client there, you wouldn't want to be laying on their treatment table sweating. You'd want to be in a comfortable environment. And I don't think it's a reason, but the residents of number 5 I have known for over 40 years. They used to live in the same village that I did. And I've seen them on many occasions, and they know that I'm a councillor, not that I'm a member of this committee, and they've never mentioned anything to me about a problem with parking or noise. It's a difficult one. Maybe Saturdays I would suggest, and I don't know whether I get a seconder for this, but I would suggest that on a Saturday the times should be from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. I don't think that would be unreasonable to knock an hour off on a Saturday morning. But as is said, the angle with giving permission for this is it does regularise it, and there is the option for enforcement should they breach these times. But I would propose, Mr. Chairman, that under condition 2 we change the time from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturdays to 9 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Is there a seconder for that? That's seconded by Councillor Stephen. Speaking to that amendment, seems reasonable that a 9 o'clock start on Saturday rather than 8 o'clock. Councillor Booth.
Thank you, Chairman. I've been biting my tongue. This is a business. We are not here to dictate the hours of a business, trying to conduct a business and survive in this fairly torrid time of actually supporting either himself or a family on the back of it. I think playing with an hour here and there, we've been discussing this for 20 minutes odd. It's very frustrating. I can only talk to that item, so I won't support it. I think it's ludicrous.
Councillor Winklis, we're talking to the hour proposal.
Yes, I will go along with the proposal of reducing from 9 to 1 on a Saturday. Councillor Clark did slightly preempt me because if I'm allowed to add this bit, I was going to propose 9 to 5 on a weekday, but whether that can be included.
We'll take that as a separate vote.
Okay, thank you.
Right, Councillor Marchington on the amendment proposal.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's because what I was going to speak about actually is to do with timing. It's not a cottage industry, but the only thing I can associate is with what we've done in the past with dog grooming and things, because it's very similar to, and we've always controlled them with quite rigid opening times that were specific, and that's why that was the point I was going to bring up. Thank you.
Okay, those who would prefer on the amendment to regulate Saturday opening from 9 o'clock instead of 8 o'clock, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Against? 1. Abstentions? 1, 2. Okay, that's carried. So back to the substantive motion, and I have Councillor Marchington.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think that was my point that I wanted to raise has been raised. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vallis.
Would this have come to committee if the applicant wasn't related to a council employee?
No.
Well then, I rest my case.
Yes.
Let's move on.
I'd have
Well, you would have called it in. You were aware that it was somebody was related to. Right. Councillor Winklis.
Thank you. Sort of drag this on a bit, but I'd also like to add another condition on, as I said just now, to propose that it's 9 to 5 on a weekday of operations. If I've got a seconder, thank you.
Does anybody wish to second that? Councillor Stevens, speaking to that. Councillor Booth.
Same comment as before. I find it ridiculous.
Good job of racing through this quickly then, Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think it's that would be too over prescriptive to knocking 2 hours off during the week. I think that you know, unfortunately I can't support Councillor Winklis's proposal on this occasion, so I will be voting against.
Okay, Councillor Stephen.
Yeah, I can see where people are concerned about the amount of hours that are being reduced here. And yeah, I do have some sympathy for those that are trying to run a business. So I would suggest, rather than, it's the early start that's concerning me, if we kept it to 9 o'clock till 6 o'clock during the day, I would be happy with that, and that would give them at least another 5 hours a week. So I'll propose that.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, there is a proposal on the floor.
Amendment to the proposal.
Are you willing to accept that change, Councillor Winklis, to your proposal?
To get this item out of the way, yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so those in favour of restricting the weekday op times to 9 to 6, please show. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Blimey, those against? 3 abstentions. Right, so we're all weekend restrictors, not week restrictors, not weekend. Okay, so we've got 2 amendments. Back to the substantial. Anybody wish to speak on the substantive now? Okay, those in favour of the officer's recommendation, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Well, that's passed then. Right, how many more have we got? Okay, we'll take 2.4, then we will take a... Are you okay, Councillor Stephen, at the moment? Right, we'll take 2.4, reference 23-504-657 full, erection of a single-storey rear extension, insertion of roof lights, etc. And that is Mandy Pilcher. Oh, I've spotted it this time, she's not here. Oh, I jumped one, I do apologise. Doing my best. 2.3. Right, that is no reference. 22-504-543, extension of existing Gypsy Traveller site at School Lane, I Wade. And the officer's Guy Martin. Any updates?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
The outstanding SAMS payment has been paid.
Right, excellent, thank you. Anyone wish to speak to this item? I'll move the officer's recommendation. Secondly, Councillor Booth. Anyone wish to speak? Oh, we'll have a presentation. Yeah, okay, yeah, now the presentation.
Okay, the application is for the extension of an existing Gypsy Traveller site and siting of 4 additional mobile homes. Okay, the site is shown in red on here, with just beneath that is the existing Gypsy site. School Lane is shown on the right of the blue line, and there's an existing dwelling to the south, and across the road is a solar park. This is an aerial photograph. Again, you can see the existing Gypsy site in the middle of the site, with a proposal extending to the north. Here we have a proposed site location plan with the location of the 4 mobile homes. The proposal includes additional hedging around the site on 3 sides, with it being open on the side adjacent to the existing Gypsy site. These plans are showing the plans and elevation of the mobile home. This photograph shows the site from School Lane looking down towards the site, and you can see one of the existing caravan mobile homes in white. This is the access to the site, and the proposal will include additional hedging which will enable restrictions of views onto the mobile homes. This photograph shows you the existing hedging along the School Lane, showing that there is already extensive vegetative screening to the site. And this is showing from the site with the car in front of the existing access and some of the existing caravans on the existing site. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now move the officer's recommendation again. Thank you, Councillor Booth. Any wish to speak on this? Councillor Booth.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Can the officer confirm, as of today, what the outstanding numbers are on the Gypsy Traveller allocations for Swale?
Yes.
Please.
It's 114, bear with me one moment. Yeah, 114 additional sites are required.
Thank you very much. We have no option but to approve. Thank you.
Councillor Kavanagh? Oh, no, we'll
Likewise, I mean, this to me seems quite sensible. The family is looking at accommodating their adults, and we need to produce more sites. It's a no-brainer, really, I would have thought.
Councillor Winklis.
Yes, I would just like to echo the previous two speakers. Obviously, you haven't quite reached our allocation for traveller sites, so as Councillor Booth said, we've got no grounds to turn it down, really.
Would anyone else like to say that? No? Okay, those in favour of the offer recommendation, please show. Okay, that's carried unanimously, thank you. I ask for an extension to standing orders beyond 10 o'clock. Thank you. I'm going to take a 10-minute break now because everybody's been sitting at their desktops.
Yep. Yeah, thanks, yeah. Yeah, so this is an application at 37 Abbey Street in Faversham for a single-storey rear extension and a side extension, effectively. I'll take you through the scheme. So it's the site outlined in red here. A lot of you will likely know Abbey Street in Faversham, and it's historically sensitive in many parts. This dwelling actually forms part of a more recent development, which is not historic, and sits in the middle of a terrace of a number of properties there. I'll move that up. This is just the aerial view of what we've just seen. So there's a driveway at the front with a landscape garden, the dwelling, and private amenity space to the rear. I'll skip that one. So in terms of the proposal, so I'll move straight to the proposed rather than look at the existing dwelling. So the rear extension, I'll zoom in. It's very, very small in scale. It effectively is just where you see the bifold or the patio doors there. It's just the left-hand side two of those. This element here projects further than the part of the dwelling on the left-hand side there. So that's the extent of the rear extension. And the side extension effectively sits under the undercroft. And on plan form, again, the rear extension is effectively limited to this small area. Sorry, this small area here on the ground floor. It's approximately 1.5 metres wide, and so set away from the boundary by a considerable distance. That's a 45-degree angle there, which obviously limits any impact from the neighbouring dwelling. And the side extension extends to the same length as that projecting element of the party wall. So no further than effectively the rear elevation of the adjacent property. There is a previous application on the site which has been approved, which has approved some, as well as some other elements, it's approved some gates to the front of the undercroft. So that's an extant permission and could be implemented. That was approved in, I should say in the history, June 23. So that, yeah, that's still live. But without that, and if that wasn't implemented, here is the proposed front elevation of the side extension. So some photographs of the site. So as I said, it's a more modern dwelling than a lot of the dwellings and buildings on Abbey Street. As you can see here, here's the undercroft, and here's the dwelling. It's set back from the adjacent dwelling on that side, and on the other side too is also set back slightly. And then some photographs to the rear. So this is looking back through the undercroft from the front of the dwelling, sorry, from the back of the dwelling, looking frontwards. And that's where the side extension will be, and the side views. Oh, what's happened here? Sorry. Do you want to know the weather? Yeah, if you want to know the weather, give us a second. Is it that one? Actually, if I just move it, would you do, Philly?
Try pressing the Windows button on the keyboard.
Oh, there.
Get bigger. Click on the presentation itself. Does that?
No, that's what I tried. Yeah.
Try that arrow there.
No, that says more news.
Oh, okay.
Oh dear.
Click on the picture.
Yeah, that's what I tried that. I'll tell you what, if I move the bar across, I might be able to get the photos on the left hand, maybe. What's happened? Right, hang on. So that's taken that away. There we go. Right. Okay, so this is looking in the direction of where the rear extension would be located. And as I said, it's set in from that side boundary, so any views of it would be basically obscured by the existing dwelling. And on the other side, you can see that wall there, which is where the depth of the side extension would run up to. So it would effectively come no further than that wall and, in officers' view, not cause any harm by virtue of that. So, in summary, the recommendation is to approve the application as per the report. Thank you very much.
I will move the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Councillor Booth. Anyone wish to speak to this? Councillor Booth?
Yep, just a quickie. I note Faversham Town Council's objection, stating it will affect the street scene of the conservation area, and the Swale Borough Council Conservation Officer has no objection. Is there any commentary from the Conservation Officer?
Yeah, have we got any reason why the conservation...
Again, historically, Chairman, the Faversham Town Council have been very strong with regards to the conservation area. Thank you.
Yeah, I believe that the comment was fairly limited to no objection, but the assessment of it is undertaken at paragraph 7.10 in the report, and that's effectively that it's there's a variety of dwellings in the surrounding area, and in design terms it's acceptable. That's talking about the rear extension. In terms of 7.10 and 7.11 are the two important paragraphs. Obviously, the rear extension is contained on the rear and therefore not visible from public vantage points. The side extension is set 2.8 metres back from the front elevation of the dwelling, so any views of that are going to be limited to standing directly in front of the building. And it's designed in matching brickwork to the dwelling, which is a modern dwelling in itself. So, yeah, in design terms, it's acceptable, and by virtue of where it's sited and those materials, it's considered that the impact on the conservation area is also acceptable.
Yeah, it might be advisable to have a little more detail of conservation officer reports, just so that people know what they are not objecting to. Councillor Kavanagh?
Just very quickly, I know Faversham very well. I mean, yes, there are some wonderful houses in that road, and then there's this odd little blip of newer properties. To be honest, undercrofts aren't typical in that road. This might well enhance it as opposed to worsen the appearance. Thank you.
Anybody else? In that case, those in favour of the officer's recommendation, please show. Right, that's unanimous. Right, the next item is 2.5, Wises Lane. I have made my position clear on this, so I will hand over to Councillor Dark Carnell. Derek Carnell for the rest of the meeting. Dark. And I wish to speak as a ward member.
Where's his instructions? Have you got them? I don't know what I'm doing, have I? Hello, item 11, 2.5, land at Wise Lane, Baldon, Kent, ME10 1GD. I would like to invite the planning officer to provide a summary and update on the application. And I believe it is Simon Greenwood.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you, Chair. There's no updates on this application. Condition 8 of the hybrid planning permission for the residential-led development of the site granted outline permission for a two-form entry primary school, the location and size of which was included and identified on this land use parameter plan that you can see in front of you. It has since come to KCC Education's attention that the location of the primary school land is intersected by public right-of-way ZR117. Due to safety concerns, KCC Education would not be able to bring forward a primary school on a site with a public right-of-way running through it. It is proposed to amend the primary school land parcel in order that it would avoid the public right-of-way. So the public right-of-way runs along there where my cursor is showing. So, and this is a zoomed-in version of the approved parameter plan. So the public right-of-way runs there through the middle of the school site. It is proposed that the southern area of the school land would be designated as open space, and the edge of the public right-of-way would then form the school site's southern boundary. Additional primary school land would then be taken from the open space to the east. So you've got a larger area of open space down here, and then the primary school land is here in sort of peach-coloured parcel there. The configuration of the development on the site will be amended under the application proposal, but there will be no changes to the quantum of land allocated to open space and the school use. The proposed revisions to the land parcels would secure the delivery of the school site, retain the existing public right-of-way on its current alignment and the existing hedgerow, and would provide a single larger area of consolidated open space on the southern edge of the development. It is considered that the proposed revision is minor and can be considered non-material in the context of the development granted hybrid planning permission. So I'll just show you, this is a zoomed-in version. That is the amended proposed school land, and that is the amended proposed public open space. And this here in turquoise is the commercial centre. Just to make you aware, the parish council had objected that the commercial centre would be separated from the public open space, but as set out in the report, it was never intended that there would be a linkage. This commercial centre would front on to this road here. And then this is just shown on an aerial view. There's a zoomed in version with the public right-of-way there. If the application were refused, the public right-of-way would have to be adjusted around the school site, and there would be procedures involved in that. So there's no guarantee that the alternative route could be secured. And then this is showing the proposed school site with the existing public right-of-way retained. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. I invite Onogar Kurgan. Hey? Una. I'm not very good. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman and members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of this non-material amendment application, which seeks to alter the approved land use parameter plan attached to the hybrid planning consent at land at Wises Lane, Borden. As part of this hybrid planning commission, consent was granted in outline for a two-form entry primary school with the area for the school land parcel identified on the land use parameter plan. This parcel is bisected by public right-of-way ZR117, and for the safety of children, it is not acceptable to KCC Education to have a public right-of-way running through the site, and as such, it will need to be diverted. During discussions with the Wises Lane Monitoring Group, councillors raised concerns with the public right-of-way diversion and the associated removal of the hedge which lines it to facilitate the school. The proposals therefore seek to revise the location of the school land parcel, providing it entirely north of the public right-of-way in an area previously identified as open space. The overall area of the school land is unchanged. The land to the south of the public right-of-way, which was previously part of the school land, is redesignated as open space. The relocation of the school land north of the public right-of-way provides a betterment, allowing the majority of open space to be consolidated in a single area, no longer interrupted by the school site, providing a more integrated area for recreation. It further avoids the diversion of the public right-of-way and associated hedge removal. The application is supported by KCC Education. We acknowledge Board and Parish Council's concerns that the proposals would isolate the commercial centre from the open space. It was never the intention for there to be a connection between the commercial area and the open space, and an internal road was always intended to divide the two areas as illustrated on the approved land use parameter plan. Furthermore, the commercial floor space would likely address the link road where it would be more visible. There would therefore be no loss of connectivity as a result of the proposed changes. Furthermore, the layout of the school parcel is only indicative, and the final arrangements and layout of the school are not known. Should the NMA not be allowed, then the public right-of-way would require diversion from its current alignment, running along the southern boundary of the primary school land. The proposed amendment de-risks this fettering the delivery of the school, should objections to the diversion be received. It further avoids the need to remove an established hedgerow which runs parallel with the public right-of-way. The proposed change is minimal, responding to local concerns, and secures a deliverable area of land for the school. It does not materially alter the development and is therefore considered non-material. For these reasons, the proposed NMA is considered acceptable, and the change would result in a betterment to the existing scheme. Your officers have recommended the NMA for approval, and we hope that you are able to support this application. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you very much. I invite Ward Member to speak. Councillor Baldock.
Thank you, Councillor Carnell. Let's face it, this wasn't a popular development, but it's there and we want to make the best of it. We want to make it work for the residents in the best way we can. This is a total failure by KCC Education. This was pointed out to them 5 years ago, and now very late in the day they have decided that what was proposed, what went to appeal, what went to the Secretary of State doesn't suit them. They should have come in earlier. What this is about is placemaking and good design. The original, and if we can go back to the other layout of the map, where you can, that one. You can see the blue. No, that's the amended one. Have you got the original? Right, there you have the blue area is the shops, and you can see it's a large green open space. It's near the shops. It is a space that you can do something with. There's talk about maybe playground there. Councillor Hampshire had an idea of putting a pond there. Nobody agreed with him. But it was an area that you could do something with. It's a focal point of the development. It's right in the middle. It's somewhere that you would want to, show that this is a community. What we're getting instead, KCC want to take about over half of that, so you've got an unusable thin stretch of land which doesn't look good, doesn't say, isn't visible, isn't going to provide any opportunity to make something good visible from the road. It's just a strip of land that will be basically walked over, get muddy, and do nothing with. So we think that the original proposal there, it works. It's a central point. It's a piece of land you can do something with. Green space is important. Green space has to can give us a purpose. We will lose that if this change goes through. But currently there's talk that it will be a car park for the teachers there. Is that really the central point that we want by our shops, by our open space, a car park? So I would urge the committee to reject this and ask KCC to think again. The idea that they might not get permission, KCC wouldn't give themselves permission to divert a footpath, I think is unlikely. They give everybody else permission. They just need to think this again and not invade that part of the development, but find another way of arranging their school that doesn't undermine our focal point of our new development. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baldock. Right, I'd like to move the officer's recommendations. Second, Andy Booth. Now I open it up for debate. Councillor Booth.
Thank you, Chairman. I have to side in some respects with Councillor Baldock. I have a question first, but I would like to continue after it. Can the officer give us an indication, the proposal, will it have a special educational needs provision on the site? That is a yes or a no, please, at this stage.
I'm sorry, I can't. The answer, I'm afraid, is I don't know. I don't know if there's an SEN provision within the school.
Okay, I respect that. Thank you. What are my concerns, Chairman? My concerns are the footpath. My concerns are the footpath adjacent to a primary school. My gut feeling says I like that, what's on the screen now, and I would urge Kent County Council to relocate the footpath at a more appropriate spacing away from the school. That would be my request. However, this is a non-material amendment, so we can't really dig into the depths of things like that. I applaud the green space issue that Councillor Baldock made mention of. And again, I come back to the setting of a primary school and the need for youngsters to have and enjoy open spaces and green spaces, and not, as has been alluded to, look out onto a staff car park who should all be walking to work anyway. So I'm in two minds. Whilst we are duty bound to move things forward, I think a little more thought should go into it. Having said that, I'm not going to support the officer's recommendation in this case, reluctantly, but I think the original plan, in my book, sits better with me. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hunt.
Thanks, Chair. I just wonder if we can have the plan up that shows the footpaths going through, because there was that difference. There was one showing it as it goes through at the map. That's it. I mean, it's for design purposes that's been mentioned. I think actually what's been approved now, of what has been proposed now, is actually better. Sticking the school right in the middle, basically where a footpath currently is, and having to move that footpath all the way around the outside and then cutting it back across. I think there was mention of some hedges being removed as well to be able to do that. It seems to make sense to me just to leave the footpath where it is, and it's good that they've moved the school over. It does seem to make more sense doing that, and I can understand why you would not want the footpath going right through the middle of a school. Understand about the sort of commercial area, but as has been said, there was always going to be a road in between there anyway, and looking at that spacing on there, obviously we haven't got details on that are coming through yet. We'll see that as it does progress, but there's quite an actual sort of big space there. It's in between. It's not going to be all nice shops around a little green that you could have. So I see no problem with what's being proposed now. I agree that maybe KCC should have sorted things out a lot earlier and done something, especially if they've been told about it. But that's not the situation we're in, and I think it's I'll agree with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Councillor Kavanagh.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's very unfortunate that KCC didn't think about the footpath, but this is where we are now. There's been so much talk in Borden about hedgerows being lost. I don't think the residents will put up with losing any more. I think, yes, the proposal that's here tonight is better considering the circumstances, and as someone who's been responsible for her birth children and foster children, I wouldn't want a playground right by a busy road. I'd far rather have it further down where the green space is going to be. Thank you.
Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, I just think because it's such a site that still hasn't been concluded, I agree with Councillor Baldock and over there that we could just amend the whole thing, keep the footpath, keep the hedge, change it, keep the green space as a significant amount of the front. It could almost go anywhere. It just seems a bit ill thought out, really, and I think much more could be done in a better way, so we can encompass most things there. Just seems a bit half a job.
Thank you. Any more questions? Right. Ask the committee to vote on the officer's recommendations. Those in, sorry. Those against? Any abstentions? No, thank you. Six for, 6 against. Well, I did vote for, so I've got to go with what I said. So, recommendation's been carried. Thank you. Which one's that? Oh, this one here.
Yes, that's it.
Right. Item 8. Ask members of the planning committee if they wish to comment on part 5 items for noting. Pardon? I don't know. I can't. Hey? Sorry, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Again, I think it's just worthy to note on item 5.5, where this council was vehemently against the officer recommendation and was proven again to be wrong, and was upheld by the inspector. So lessons need to be learned, members. Thank you.
Just to clarify, I think you might have your wires crossed there, but I don't think that's the site you're thinking it might be. 5.5 was an application to convert a building to residential use, which was dealt with under delegated powers. No.
I'll strike that then, sorry. That will come back and bite next time. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I now close the meeting at 10:20. Thank you.